I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Smith? Ms. Salcha?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Berry?
Here. Do you have anybody who wants to address the board?
Yes, sir.
Item 2, discussion action on the approval of partial occupancy of the Douglas High School construction project of Building R, which happens to be the cafeteria, and Building V in connection with the certificate of completion issued for Building R and Building V respectively. First of all, do we have anybody that's going to be with us telephonically?
We have Ellen from Sketch Architecture, Estimating Plus, and on the phone. And we also have Roger Wood, the superintendent with AMP here present today, and Mr. Rob Berheimer from Sketch Architecture, who was right behind or right in front of Roger, that he will be attending any minute now.
Okay, members of the board, this most important meeting is due to the fact that we're well aware of the construction, where we are on it and where we aren't. But the big and the major issue, the overriding issue, actually more than the construction itself, is in the occupancy, is whether or not the district can continue to effectively and efficiently continue to feed the students out of the cafeteria. And so, to me, the way I want to structure this meeting this morning is not to conflate both of them, to talk first of all about the cafeteria and the cafeteria's ability to continue their service as best they can under the circumstances, and then come back and talk about the occupancy and the things that are going on with the construction. But I think more importantly is that we hear from the administration, with your permission, from the cafeteria manager, unless you want to do it yourself first, to inform the board and to take into consideration whether we move or we don't move. That's the big thing. We're going to get into the architects and the construction and all those things later. But the thing that the board needs to be fully aware of is whether or not we can efficiently feed those kids every day and give them an adequate meal under the circumstances, either whether we move or we don't. More importantly, whether we don't, because of the mitigating circumstances you have now regarding the kitchen and your limited ability to do all of the things that you would like to, have the full-blown menu and those kinds of things. And then I want to say, before we turn it over to you or Anna, the superintendent, however she wants to handle it, want to ensure that there's questions about which way the board goes one way or the other, is that there is not going to be any loss of employment or loss of hours to any of our employees in the cafeteria. And that's the other issue that we have to consider of utmost importance, of their well-being as well. The safety and well-being of the students is what we're concerned about here this morning, and we'll get into the construction later. So if, with your permission, I'm going to have Mr. Pineda tell the board one way or the other, starting if we don't move past 2 weeks, what your operation would look like, and whether you could prolong that service the way you're going now, or some type of adjustment would have to be made. Okay, so with that, go ahead.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, yes, I think we've been having long discussions if we extend or not. We already have plans to operate the way that we're operating for a period of 2 to 4 weeks. We're adapting the menu for the high school students, or our operations looks more like, and the Joe Carlson behind the scenes we're getting more affected. Logistically, we're getting the big hit. The kids won't see much effect with the service that we're providing to them. Of course, we wanna, starting a new school year, we wanna continue our vision to improve meals and to get like better quality service and better meals to the students. And with the type of limitations that we have right now, we're unable to do that. We do have a menu plan that's very similar to middle school and elementary. Everything's getting prepared at Joe Carlson at one site. So the logistics of it is a day-by-day basis. Right now, 2 days in, we've been having no issues. Doesn't mean that we're not gonna have issues in the future. You have to schedule staff daily. Of course, the hours of for the employees, we're hoping that doesn't get affected. Of course, as you know, our budget gets formed through the year as we serve the students, so hopefully our numbers don't drop, and that's always an incognito, right? Like, we want to do the best so we can just continue with our operations the best as we can. So as far as the answer is, we can do we have the ability or the resources right now to feed the kids? Yes. With limitations, yes. And for how long? We're thinking about a period of 2 to 4 weeks maximum. Of course, I think there's other things that we had to consider at this point, but that's the plan right now. And yeah, staff is our priority, and students. We want to continue doing our things right. We want to see if you can consider our vision and to do better meals. We have the one shot, the one opportunity, transferring to the new kitchen and do things a little better. We have plans to have better visual. So hopefully that takes in consideration, of course, taking safety and all those things as a priority. So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Let's get a little bit more specific before we get into the
Yes.
other part of the discussion. The question to you would be that if this board, after hearing the second part of what we're going to address this morning, if this board decided not to go in based on some of the things that we're going to hear or we don't hear, could you continue to do the service as was discussed earlier, and effectively do it with all of the requirements you have of all of the health requirements of the transporting and the temperatures and all that stuff? How long could you do that? Although it may not be the best of all worlds, how long could you do that if this board decided not to occupy or accept the architect's sign-off or recommendation on the cafeteria?
Yeah, one thing that I'm gonna tell you right now, that this department is not gonna fall apart. It's gonna continue running, so there's always gonna be a plate on the kids' at lunch. So we can manage to operate effectively. I have a question mark on that because I don't know what we consider effectively on that side, other comparison to what I consider effectively on this side. But we have a plan for 4 weeks once again. I think continue doing it like this. So after that, we will have to manage it again. Behind the scenes is where everything has to be rearranged, and that's on a daily basis. So 4 weeks is the plan, and then after that, we can continue doing whatever we can with the resources and the possibilities that we have. So,
Administration, go ahead, Anna.
Yes, so as a team and as Mr. Pineda discussed, once certificate of, there's several things that need to take place before we even say, okay, we can now move in. And we will discuss those later in this meeting. But operating under the logistics and the dynamics of the current plan that we have in place without being able to access our new facility, maximum a month, no more than a month. 3 weeks to a month would be our plan. Our plan moving forward, as I provided in my governing board update, once we receive the building and the architect signs off on his own requirements and the things that need to be taken care of on the side of AMP, then we, potentially we're talking at least we're operating on Plan B for about 2 weeks. So no more than a month.
Why, explain that, why no more than a
Um,
month? He's
well,
who's saying that,
yes.
that he could go maybe indefinitely, but it wouldn't be full-blown in.
Yeah, and I don't think Mr. Pineda said indefinitely. He said, we will operate, and that we will do. We will teach, we will feed kids, we will do whatever we need to do. However, under the Plan B, which is preparing all of the meals for the district in one kitchen, which is Joe Carlson, instead of two kitchens, is the dynamics and the coordinating of staffing that he said. You know, we're not letting go of any staff, we're not reducing any staff hours. However, he's having to manage hours of employees, and where does he put them? Because normally he would have, let's say, I'm gonna say just a rough number, 30 people working out of the two cafeterias. Well, 30 people now working in one cafeteria in a smaller condensed area is not possible. So he's having to now maybe, instead of the, 20 people that normally work at JC, now maybe only 10 people that would be preparing meals in the other cafeteria be at Joel Carlson. So it's a staffing, making sure people are giving an assignment, whether you're preparing meals or whether you are ready to receive and set up at the cafeteria or at the middle school elementary. So the logistics and dynamics of the operations, which are the behind the scenes work that takes place, that doesn't affect kids, that won't affect, the meal, is what we're saying, no more than a month. You've got to really understand that if it were beyond a month, then we need to consider in our existing cafeteria, we don't have any more gas. All that has been shut down. There is no more equipment to prepare meals. So ovens, dishwasher, the meal prep, big equipment is all at the new cafeteria. So all of that had to be moved over in order to go through all of the required inspections. So that's why I'm saying we don't have the resources to meal prep out of the old cafeteria beyond 1 month, which we are using one cafeteria right now. Could we, could they still continue providing meals? Absolutely. It's not we want to make sure our parents understand that they're not getting a sack lunch, for example. They're getting a good meal. The meal prep is the same, probably, as you said, for high school, middle school, and elementary. However, we have a new building, and let's say all goes well, we have certificate of occupancy, the architect has, seen and approved all of his own requirements and that are up to par with, building safety, construction requirements, that the surrounding premise outside the cafeteria is also, ADA accommodations, that the fencing and all of that is ready. Then it is our due diligence to say, okay, we are ready to move in and start feeding kids and the counselors in the cafeteria and all of that. And that's why, Mr. Barrena said, we as a team said we can operate under Plan B, which is this one, for hopefully no more than a month, if need
Let's,
be.
without talking about the mechanical or structure or anything with the, to do with the contractor, the architect, members of the board, do you have any questions about the operation of the cafeteria as it would be required under the circumstances?
I just want to make sure one thing.
Go ahead.
4 months is the max we can go. But for some reason, we have to go beyond that, and I don't want to see that. We
4
prepared-
weeks. 4 weeks, 4 weeks, a month. We're hoping that we can move in no more than a month.
And if we don't?
If-
If it's not possible?
Then we're going to have to really look at the dynamics and the logistics
That's
of,
my
yeah.
concern right there.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yeah, thank you. I would have preferred to see a plan that takes us all the way to fall break. Because like Ms. Ramos says, if anything unforeseen happens, I would like to see a better plan rather than stick to 4 weeks. 4 weeks, I think, is unrealistic with everything that has to happen. So I want to see a plan that'll take it to at least fall break. Thank you.
Ms. Seltzer?
Have we passed all of our inspections?
We have passed the fire marshal inspection and the health inspection, and there is one more pending city inspection that still needs to take place, and unless there's something that's changed since yesterday afternoon.
So, and that's for both the kitchen and the cafeteria itself?
Yes, that's the building R. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything that could be considered a hazard or dangerous to the students or the adults who work there?
Right now,
Uh-huh.
as of now, well, it's not, you don't have all the safety, all the inspections have passed, so without the city, we can't even move in. So assuming that the architect has signed off on certificate of completion, and he'll better explain this, but he won't sign off on that until all the inspections have passed, number one, okay? And so once all of that takes place, a certificate of occupancy, all the safety hazards and the items that the architect deems as the crucial, most important things that need to be taken care of before he signs off, then there is that time period where he will explain we've mentioned it before, the substantial completion time. And so I can't tell you whether the city inspection is going to pass tomorrow. They're still working out those kinks and getting those details. But worst case scenario, what I'm saying is, because building R is closest to anything in as a finalized project, I can say no more than a month. If it were building S or building, let's say, T, which are the other two buildings, I would not be telling you a month. It is because of the information that we have and how close we are to finalizing building R that I would say, once the architect signs off, once all of those little details fall into place, we could operate and move in within a month's time. And that's why I'm saying a month. Now, if it extends itself, because let's say the city inspection doesn't pass and they have more requirements for AMP, then they're going to have to take care of those requirements. So that may be a little bit more that they're going to have to work. But I can't tell you that right now.
I like the idea of a schedule
Uh-huh.
that Mr. Lindeman mentioned. I think that's reasonable to ask. So it's not too fluid. I mean, it's just dragging and dragging and dragging.
You
And
can
I
sit down,
think our-
Mr. You go ahead and sit down. Good. You don't need to stand there.
All
We're
right.
done with
Do
your
you have
part.
any questions while
Yeah.
I'm here?
My major concern has been throughout this whole episode is there's got to be reasons for us being 9 months behind. And we're going to give them the pandemic. I mean, that everybody's fits into that syndrome for a certain period of time. But there has never been any official report made to this board or by the administration for having the architect or anybody come back to them and say, we are concerned that this isn't happening or that this happened, and we're extremely concerned that there has never been any type of information given this board from the architect that would really justify this delay. And the thing that also it harkens me is the fact that every time I personally asked a question of one of the representatives, there was always a justification for it. And the first one being, and Dr. Gomez was on the board at the time, was the question about the transformer. And I'm not going to get into all the particulars, but there was the hem-hawing and the lack of a valid explanation as far as I'm concerned. And then we get this justification, and then it's refuted in an official letter to the district by APS that what we had been officially informed by our representatives was not true. And they refuted that on the transformer. And it goes on and on and on. And I'm not rebuking the contractor or the architect. I'm just stating what's molding my opinion regarding this whole situation. We decide that we're going to move in that cafeteria, and then it's part of a monolithic building, right? I understand, and the reason I say that, I understand there's problems with the roof already. That during the rainy season it leaked. So we move in there and we talk about the safety and of not only the students, but of the staff. And then we continue to find out that there's little discrepancies, even after they sign off. Then what's the plan going to be if we move in there and then they come back and say, we can't operate now because mechanically this has been affected, or mechanically or structurally this has been affected. So then we have to have a plan C. Then where do we go? And the reason, and I'm not adamant about it, I'm just trying to really be objective about it, is that if we can continue to operate the way we're operating now, that's why, and I didn't put words in Mr. Pineda's mouth, he didn't say indefinitely, but my question was, how long can you go? And if we're able to do that without taking something that's Hobson's choice, that we take it because we're obliged to take it. We're not obliged to take anything, members of the board. We can get a certificate of occupancy from the architect, but that doesn't mean we have to occupy it. All they're doing is signing off on it. And I personally am very reluctant to move into that building with all of these contingencies hanging over our head, and especially at the risk of having a disruption so major that we wouldn't be able to feed the students, that we'd have to shut the cafeteria down. And I'm not talking about the elementary, because Joe Carlson would be effectively up and running. But if we had to have a problem and they had to shut down the high school cafeteria, then he's going to have to scramble again and go back. I'm thinking the way, just looking at everything objectively, is that if we don't have to move in that building until we get a final clean bill of health on the whole thing, at this point, unless during this meeting, circumstances, or I'm influenced by the fact that maybe that's our best route to go, then that's the way I stand right now. Members of the board, any conversation or any reaction? Mr. Ramos.
Yes, this is why I was asking Mr. Pineda. If we have to go on beyond the 4 weeks, can it be done effectively? I know it's not going to be
Yes.
to your best, but this is something that we have to think and look hard into, because as Mr. Bahrain just said right now, if we accept it, we're going to be left holding the bag, and we're going to have the problems, and we have to shut down to get it fixed. We're going back to the same situation. I would like to see that building completely in up and running condition where we can sign off on it. Until then, I don't agree in signing off right now on that.
I think that the level of confidence, and with all due respect, they've changed supervisors, I don't know how many times up there. There's been delays, and I know that they will say, well, we've run into some insurmountable circumstances that we haven't been able to effectively do what we need to do. But that's not on us. I mean, that shouldn't affect us adversely like it is. And again, if we were 2 or 3 months behind, but we're almost a year behind, what confidence can we have that if we move in and there's a sign off on that, and then especially already with the understanding that there's a discrepancy up there now with the leaking roof, and there's a lot of little mitote going around about the whole building, it could be in jeopardy. Well, what confidence are we going to have knowing that we've been involved in this for 9 months and there's still no end in sight? And of course, that's why I wanted, like I said earlier, not to conflate them, but I wanted to make sure that we knew we had a good understanding about the cafeteria, because that's of utmost importance. The most important consideration here this morning is the feeding of the students. That's the most important consideration, uninterrupted. And if we take possession of this building now, and we sign off, and they move, and they find out that there's some structure problem or some mechanical problem that doesn't afford them the environment to be able to effectively operate, and then what's plan C? Come back here and say, well, now we got to move everything back. And with the history and the recognition that we already have regarding this whole construction, It doesn't sound like a very feasible idea to me, to be honest with you. And like I said, I'm not rebuking anybody. I'm just looking at circumstances that are objective and things that can be validated that haven't happened up there. And we're still looking at it. Members of the board, anything else? I'm not going to call for the question yet. I want a lot of discussion. Go ahead.
Well, again, I think there's two different issues here. There's the feeding of the students and then the actual building. So if we can feed the students for a month, I would hope that we have a plan in place to extend that. And, you know, it can be the same plan, you can do the same thing, but just keep it going. And I want to give it to at least fall break, because that gives us, you know, a good time to get all these other kinks worked out. Now, according to the building, do all of our mechanical, you know, like the dishwasher and the stoves, do they all fit in the new building? Or are we going to have problems with that? Or do we have to budget to get new equipment?
Those are all unknowns, but go ahead.
Yeah, all the existing equipment that got transferred to the new cafeteria is already installed and already passed inspection. So to make our old kitchen operational again, we need to have some essential utilities like gas to be run there for our hand washing sink. Dishwasher is been not working for the past year and a half, and it's a big expense that we didn't incur because of the possibilities of moving to the new cafeteria. So if we are planning to extend, there's some other things logistically, other than logistically, utilities that we need to set up in place. So 3-compartment dish, it needs to be installed because that got moved from like old kitchen to the new kitchen, and well, the rest of the
But
ovens.
your equipment is all in the new
it's all
cafeteria.
installed, but there's no plans to move that equipment back.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's
But
very
they all
heavy.
fit, they all work.
They all fit and they
The
all work.
walk-in freezer is good to use?
Walk-in freezer, yes, and we're
Because
planning
that's
to.
new.
Yes, all of that
That's
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, see, that was my concern. And now I just heard about the roof leaking. Well, you know, there again, we're gonna have to need more time. Now, if the city gives the inspection okay sooner, so much the better. But I do think that we have to start planning for these eventualities, because we don't know what's in the future. So that would be my concern.
And we have been, Mr. Lindeman. This is, I mean, we meet extensively. This has been our plan since we knew in June where the, you know, schedule of the construction was going, and so we started making Plan B. And so, yes, can we prolong it longer to operate under these terms? Yes. You know, ideally, we wouldn't want to more than a month, but that is a want. And I don't think, and I've had extensive discussions with our architect, and like he said, you know, I'm not going to sign off on anything that I've deemed as unacceptable. And so that's his standard too. And I'm not the architect, but hopefully, you know, he can give you further explanation on the side of the architect. But we can definitely operate longer if need to, and that is, you know, a plan. We don't want to for an extended period of time, but we know that even with the remaining buildings, as they get done, we are looking at, you know, at later dates. And so that plan has already been discussed amongst our team.
We're going to give the architect an opportunity in a minute, but I want to finish with the board first. Ms.
Yeah,
Ms.
Ms.
Salchow.
You know, considering the lack of rain we've had, we're just lucky that the whole thing hasn't flooded, where we would normally get so much more rain in
yeah.
in July, and we're about to hit what is usually a heavier rainy, you know. Hopefully it's not gonna, well, I don't wanna say that we need rain, but August tends to bring in some heavy-duty storms with a big downfall. So what's that going to do to the structure and to what's underneath it? I mean, that's crucial. Roofs are crucial.
That's why we're having this discussion this morning. Mr. Ramos, anything else?
No.
Is somebody representing the architect here?
Yeah,
Oh.
yes, Rob is here.
Okay, yeah, have him come up. You heard the conversation.
Oh, yeah, oh, definitely. And believe me, from your mouth to my mouth to the contractor, we've been discussing this privately. We've been talking about this since June. We had contingency plans since June on this project. We didn't share that with the contractor because we have been pushing to get the project completed. We didn't want them to know that there was contingency plans because we needed to keep pressure on them to keep this project moving forward. So this has been an internal discussion that we've had. We've talked for at least 5-6 weeks now about Plan B, which Anna had brought up, and so this is not completely, came out of left field. We've been anticipating this for a while. One of the things I wanted to make sure that you understand is there's the city standards, there's the engineering standards, there's the health department standard, and there's my standards, okay? And my standards are your standards, okay? Which is the highest level of workmanship, okay? And a lot of these things that are happening, these roof leaks have been identified previously, okay? So these are not unknown items, these are not new items, these are items that have been going through. We're working through trying to get these things corrected. I will not release a building that has roof leaks on it, okay? It's not gonna happen. Until, as a matter of fact, we discussed this morning that I'm going to go up on the roof and we're gonna do leak testing with a hose. I was up there a couple weeks ago and, generated a very large list of items that needed to be deficiencies, that needed to be addressed. So those are in process at the moment. So let me explain. I want to make sure everybody understands how this process works. There's the lowest level on this is the city municipal level in terms of the final say on this. Ultimately, who decides whether it can be occupied or not is me, okay? And so that's legally, and that's a responsibility to you. You're my client, not the contractor. So we have generated a 2-page action list item that we're working on right now, which is not even a punch list item. So punch list items, are, in my mind, however, things like touching up a wall or fixing a rubber base over here or cleaning up something over here. That's a punch list item. A roof leak is a deficiency item. That's an item that has to be repaired, it has to be addressed immediately. Okay, we're working on those deficiency items right now as we speak. I mean, I've been coming down regularly on this job, and believe me, when you say 9 months, I know, because I'm coming out here at my own expense for 9 months beyond my contractual date. Okay, so you're hot, I'm hot too as well. I want to see this project through and get it finished. We're close. We're very close. Okay, we're close on R. We talked about our internal discussion had been 2 weeks beyond school. I think we're going to be very close to hitting that, which is what we talked about 6 weeks ago. So again, it's not a new item. It's something we have talked about already. It's coming to fruition. The contractor was not aware of that. Fernando and I have been talking. We've been communicating with each other. And I don't want to release a kitchen over to him that's not operational. It's still not operational. I was still screaming, pounding my fist, all kinds of expletives coming out of my mouth are happening to make sure that we're getting this thing moving forward. We're not there yet. We're getting close. A lot has gotten done in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Really significant, really since Roger's been on board, a substantial improvement in terms of how A&P has performed on this job. I know they're working hard. They're working here Saturday, Sunday in the evenings. They are really, really doing the best that they can. There's a lot of things that are out of their control, and Roger, I'm sure, will address those with you. But I know Alan, you can speak for Alan as well, but Alan and I talk to each other 2 and 3 times a day. We're on this continuously. I can tell you that we're disappointed. I know you're disappointed. We've worked very hard, but the last thing I want to do is rush this job and give you guys something that you're not going to be happy with or is going to be a giant albatross. So we want to make sure that we have the highest quality, the highest standards. It's safe for our children to be in there. We've discussed all these plans about how we can make it safe and still occupy Building R. I believe that we are within 2 weeks of making that happen. Okay, we're that close. Everything's operational, everything's running. We got a lot of fine tuning little things. We got some things that need to be done, but it's close. And I would welcome you after this meeting. If you want to walk with me, I'll be happy to take you through and you can see for yourself. It's very close. V is a couple weeks behind. Obviously, we're struggling with IT over on V. S&T are lagging, as we all know, but our number one concerns have always been V and R, and that has been our priority, and that's still our priority to get those accomplished. So how this process will work is, once the city signs off, and we're working with the city, and believe me when I say this, the city has also been difficult as well. We've been having a lot of challenges with the city, trying to make things, to resolve issues with them. It hasn't been smooth sailing either on the city side. So I've had to get in the middle. I've had to get the city manager involved and assisting and trying to broker solutions and resolve issues in the field. So it's not been easy. Once that happens, then I will walk it with the school district. We'll walk it together. I will generate a list of punch list items, and then at that point, I will determine whether it's used for its intended purpose. That's the litmus test for substantial completion. So if we can't feed kids out of the kitchen, that's not its intended purpose. Okay? If it's not safe for our kids, it's not for its intended purpose. It's not safe. So those are the things that are a higher level of standard that is way beyond the city and everybody else. We will walk the roof, the site. As I'm out there every week, I point out issues that things that need to be addressed. We put them on a list. We're chipping away at that list. I know they're working hard. I really need you to understand that they are really, really doing what they can. I know it's not maybe what you wanted to hear. We're not there, but they are really working as hard as they can. So with that, any questions that you have?
Well, let me say a couple of things. First of all, I mentioned the word confidence, and of course, it was a pretty broad statement regarding a lot of things. And the cliched part that we always come up is we're responsible to the taxpayer, and we're responsible for having the best interest of the district and everybody involved, right? Right. And part of that is in the contract. And you're going to detest the fact that I'm going to bring this up, but part of that in the contract that I mentioned to you earlier, as part of being responsible because of the amount of money being spent, I've discussed with you and with Alan the penalty clause. Yep. Just to lay it out there, just in the event. Every time I brought that issue up, I brought it up 3 times. I brought it up officially at the second or third inspection we had. I brought it up at a meeting with the contractors when they switched for about the second time and they introduced us, and I brought it up again recently. And every time I bring it up, it's part of the contract. It wouldn't be there if it weren't something that legally could be exercised. It's been euphemized by you and by Alan. You know, the odds of doing that, I didn't ask about the odds. I was asking about protection and the indemnity of the district as far as the amount of money being spent up there and how much we're spending that we don't have to be spending, and what that penalty clause and that liquidated damage could mean to the school district. That's part of our responsibility in asking that. But it was euphemized every time I asked about it. Oh, the odds are going there. Instead of saying, you know what, we're looking into it, and you know, don't be too presumptuous. We're going to get to that at some point. We're 9 months behind. And given what I said, that the COVID syndrome, you and Alan both have never wanted to discuss that. And you are the people that are responsible for determining what liquid damages would be. And in the best interest of all of us concerned, the taxpayers in this town would like to know that if we're entitled to $100,000 or $200,000 worth of damages, the district should get it. But you played it down, and so has Alan every time it's brought up.
Okay, well, that's not, you're pointing at me and you're saying that's not completely fair to me, but
we're looking at it in the face right now. We're looking at liquidated damages now, and you don't even want to discuss it.
No, I didn't. I'm going to talk about it. Hold on, just give me a second on that. So the liquidated damages clause that's in the contract, okay, was generated by the district's attorney, okay? So that came, and that discussion, and there were early discussions about liquidated damages, and how we wanted to utilize them, okay? And it was determined by all parties, including the district, that we were going to do liquidated damages on substantial completion, which means that once I give that substantial, they have 30 days to complete that, okay? And if they don't, then those clauses, those damages start to come into play. And and I've warned them about that as well, that there are things that are going to have to be done, that there's so many things on this that separate substantial from final completion that I'm not sure that they can get that done. But that's another issue. So related to the reason why, I'm going to tell you the reason why it was decided to change it this way was because you got to remember, we were given 65% of what we actually needed by the state. And so to try to even get anybody to bid the project, anybody that would be interested in even building down here, when you throw that kind of clause in there, all they do, they react at bidding time, and they say, all right, you know what, I'm going to put $3 or $4 million in my bid, and I'm going to do that. And so you pay now or you pay later. And then what really happens on a typical level is that you create a very adversarial job site, because all they do is every time there's a delay or a change, or the district didn't pay on time, or this didn't get ordered, or something's in back order, or whatever, they use that as a tool of adding for additional days. So it really becomes a very, very difficult thing to legally enforce. And of course, the issue that you get into on liquidated damages is this is a school that's been operational. The 2,000 students that have been going to Douglas High School have been going to school. So then you get into the issue about what are the damages really, okay? Because you have school, you had, what were your actual damages? So those are the reasons why it was done this way, okay? But it wasn't done in a vacuum. It wasn't done by the architect and Alan getting together. It was done by all parties coming together and deciding what was best for the district.
Rob, I didn't imply, I think I specifically said my confidence in what the constructs of my confidence had a lot to do with your comments regarding that. I understand thoroughly what you're saying about that, about the substantial completion. But the fact that every time I'd bring it up because of the delay, and it wasn't something that we concocted, it's real. 9 months, right?
Yeah.
You played it down, and so did him. So then, in my mind, I'm thinking you don't even want to talk about that. And I realize all of the other ramifications, but I start thinking, what confidence am I going to have as a board member in the architects if they don't even want to discuss and say, oh, no, don't worry about that. And then Alan saying, oh, our track record in court. I don't care what the track record in court is. That's why you go to court. And that's why those things are put in those contracts. And I'm just going to finish. I'm not saying that we want to exercise it. I'm just saying that was all part of the attitude and the environment that's been created and the pall hanging over that whole construction. Members of the board, do you have any questions for the architect?
No, I just wanted to mention, yes, our school is functioning,
Yes.
as it always has. But we didn't have these buildings built just to modernize or to make our high school more beautiful. We build them because we need them.
I know.
We need them for our
Yeah,
students.
I agree, yeah. No.
I just wanted to say that.
Mr. Lindeman?
I just had one question that comes to my mind, and that's if we take over the buildings when you say they're done, and we do have another roof leak that springs up, I'll use that as an example. Doing a little hose test, I do that on my own house, and then when a 100-year storm comes, quite
Oh, yeah.
rarely, that is not the test. So I was just wondering, is there a mechanism then that we can say, oh, this did happen before we?
Yeah, let me explain. So before substantial completion, obviously everything's like a deficiency item. Once we give substantial completion, okay, and we do our walkthrough, and we'll do our very best to address all the items that we can see, okay, there are always things that always come up after, of course, And there might be some more leaks that come up as well. We want to, obviously, the ones that we're having right now are fairly easy to see. We figured out where they're at, and then we talked about it this morning. They're addressing them, they're getting them fixed. They know exactly where they're at. We have a 40-year roof warranty on the building. That's per the contract. We also have a 2-year general contractor warranty on the workmanship on the building as well. So that's post substantial completion. And then on top of that, realizing now that we're still, we're not there yet. We haven't even gotten to even substantial yet. So we're trying to grab as many as we can, but there are, that's why we have warranty claims. That's why we have warranties in place. So I would not be, yes, those might happen, but we have mechanisms to take care of those things if they occur and when they occur.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Salcho, any questions for the architect?
No.
All right, I really appreciate your being here and having a
Yeah.
good discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm not speaking for the administration because I know you have a good relationship with them, interaction. I'm just talking about my own personal frustration and some that I've heard from the board members as well, all right? And so, do you want to hear from Ellen now?
Sure. I mean, Ellen is on the phone, and
Thanks, Rob.
we constantly meet with Ellen, and that is exactly the process that I've been saying. You know, we're not going to move in until at least these items have been approved and signed off by Rob, and then it's our decision when to, you know, do we move in on a Wednesday, or do we move in on a Friday, or 3 months from now? And I did explain that to AMP in our general meeting, that when we move, it's up to us, you know, to occupy actually the building. So, Alan, do you have anything to add?
Other than the fact that I totally understand that the board's frustration, we're all unhappy with the situation. We would love to have seen this in a perfect world finish out a lot better. But I honestly think under the circumstances that we really are close, it's probably academic how the contract was written or how we could have written it. Or we had numerous meetings with the attorneys for the district, and we write the contract in a certain way, but that's academic at this stage in time. I think what's relevant right now is to go forward, to make this thing happen, and we will meet almost on a daily basis and go through every item until we get this thing taken care of to the satisfaction of Rob as the architect and obviously protecting you as the client. And yeah, we share your frustration. We're as frustrated as you are, and I sincerely apologize for everybody, but honestly, we're going to give it our very, very best shot on a go-forward basis to make sure that these buildings will become usable in the next couple of weeks, certainly for Building R.
Okay, I understand there's somebody as well here from the construction company.
Yes.
Did you want to add to the conversation or clarify or anything before we get back to the board to decide what the board wants to do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is.
You can come up, Roger.
Biggest thing is, my name's Roger Wood. I'm the project superintendent for Adams, Son & Peterson. If you guys don't know who I am, I know a few of you. So, I guess the biggest thing for you guys is what questions you have. Everything Rob had to say, and Fernando, and Anna, I think they covered all the bases, and Alan. But if you guys have any specific questions for me, the general contractor, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, let me start with one that's been mentioned. If the determination has been made that there's a leak in the cafeteria already in that section, what does that say about the rest of that roof? Because it's all monolithic, right? What does it say about the rest of the roof?
Yeah, well, the roof is standing seam metal roof, and it's got a gutter pan in it, which is somewhat unique and pretty easy to fix if you have a leak. But the nice thing about yesterday is we had a good water test. We had a pretty good gully washer yesterday. So Courtney, my project engineer, and I were on site till about 6 o'clock last night and going and identifying all these areas that are leaking. They're very minimal. Most of them are through windows that haven't been caulked yet over building T and S. A few of them are where thresholds are not in, where the water is, it's driving rain, of course, so it's coming under the door. But there are a few areas where there are penetrations in the roof that they didn't get patched, which we've already identified today. There's one area right above Fernando's hood in the Ansel system that was just one screw hole, and it was such a strong rain that it found that hole, and it came down right in the kitchen floor. And there's one other area in the gutter pan in the storage unit on the, it'd be the north side, north storage unit, where we have a hole that's coming out of the gutter pan, which I haven't found it yet, but I will. So there's really not that bad of leaks. I mean, it's typical for these types of roof because of all the penetrations on the roof. We got RTU units, we've got hood fans and exhaust fans. You've got condensate lines, you've got electrical going up to disconnects for each unit on every building. So it's not uncommon to have leaks at this stage of the game. And like Rob said, you know, you guys are our biggest concern. You're our client. So we're going to take care of you. And with the reputation of this company that I work for, which I'm actually pretty new to the company. I just started with the company on this job. So that was back in November I took this on. So, and it's been, you know, I won't be, you know, I'll be honest right now. It's been a challenge since I took over. We've struggled to uncover the rocks and get all the right things pulled out. And, you know, people don't want to come down to Douglas. We have Phoenix subcontractors, and I've had to I'm pretty even all the time at my age now, but I didn't used to be. But I've had to get pretty elevated with some of these subcontractors, and it's been a challenge. So some things are out of our control. We've had to put them on notice. We've had to get our legal department involved with our subcontractors to get things happening for you guys. So we're doing what we can, the best we can. I know it's tough and frustrating for you guys because not only you're looking after your students, your staff, the town in general, the school district in general. I get all that, but I mean, we'll do the best we can to finish this, and I think we're on track. 4 weeks and we'll have this thing really close. Now, like Rob said, there's always going to be stuff coming back. The painter, the electrician, I'll come down I live in Prescott, but I'll come down for 3 or 4 days if I need to fix whatever needs, because things are going to come up as you guys occupy the buildings. It's going to start, everything's going to be kicking on and, all the motors running, and there'll be things that happen, that we need to take care of. The nice thing is we have pretty good warranties from not only the equipment, but all of our subcontractors have a real healthy warranty on the building and their activities and their tasks because state of Arizona. So one of the cool things about the company that I work for is even though we only have a year or a 2-year warranty, we take care of our clients until they don't need us anymore, even if it's 10 years or 15 years. I do know that about this company. That's one reason why I went to work for them, because of the integrity of they're going to take care of you guys. So, and I'm on call 24/7. So you guys, if you want my number, you can call me. I stay up here for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then I go home to Prescott for 2 or 3 days, and I come back. But any other questions specific to?
Well, I noticed, you said you're on call 24/7. I noticed you moved the trailer out of your office. You must think you're pretty close to the end. Members of the board, Ms. Salchow.
You mentioned the subcontractor's warranty, but if there's a problem, are they gonna show up? Since it's so far to come to Douglas from Phoenix, the road only goes one way.
Well, yeah, that's our hope, of course, to get them here, and that's fortunately for us, they're contractual with us, so we hold all their money. And money talks. So I found out as I've gotten older that you don't yell, you don't scream, you don't threaten. You just say, well, you're not getting paid this month. And all of a sudden the owner gets involved, and lo and behold, they're here the next morning or that same day. And that has happened in the last 3 weeks, I can tell you, at least 4 times. We don't like to go that route, but that we have to. We've got buildings to turn over to you guys. We're trying to get this thing done. And our goal was to get it done. And when I took over, you guys were already way behind, and I wasn't going to gain that ground back. I could tell. I just did the best to maintain it. But yeah, we want to try to get it done as fast as we can. But yeah, we don't like to threaten, but we've had to lately, unfortunately.
Ms. Alchow, do you have any other questions?
that was my question.
Mr. Lindeman?
I just wanted to know, can you identify specifically on the city side what the, what you needed to, as far as, those, you know,
Yeah, Anna, she'll help me with it. I've kind of mitigated through it this week as best I can. The city of Douglas has been very difficult to deal with. I've been trying to get Cochise County more involved because they're more experienced. Paul, the head plans examiner over there, and Bob, the lead senior inspector, were on a courtesy walk, I think. Were you on that courtesy walk? I missed it because I had to go to Oregon. But they are very cooperative, and even Paul on the phone yesterday says, I'm there tomorrow if you need me. The problem is here, and
specifically what?
well, for one, response. They're not very responsive, and they're not very communicative. And then when I asked for, yesterday, for example, we have some items that they don't want to come out and do a final inspection on building R or V until we corrected these items. Okay, what are the items? It took me all day long to finally get a response from William Osborne on what those items were. And the items were, I was kind of actually shocked because the items were, most of them were pertaining to the parking lot and to building S&T and sewer. And we made an agreement with it. We would turn over 2 buildings, you guys, first, so R and B. And then the next phase will be S&T and the site. And these items, only 2 or 3 of them were really pertain to R and B. So it's pretty frustrating because we can get a temp C of O right now, today.
Is that who the
Without
inspections are?
pending the
coming
leaks
from?
and his turnover, of course. What's that?
Is that where the inspections are coming from?
Yeah, the city is that's what we're waiting on is the city of Douglas final building inspection so
But
that we
Mr.
can get a
Osborne.
temp C of O. Huh?
But this Mr. Osborne,
Yep.
does
they
he do
have-
the inspections?
No, they have a young new, I don't know if you guys knew Renee Molina. He was our building inspector, and I developed a very good relationship with him, and he was awesome. But the gas company stole him from us, of course. But now they have a young new inspector. His name is William Romero, and he's a young up-and-coming. He's got a lot to learn. I get that. I've been there at one time, so we're willing to help and be patient with him. But he is not capable of making a final building inspection because he doesn't have the experience. So he needs the Cochise County to help him. And that's where they had agreed to use the county for that. And I've had the county, I don't know, I think he admitted or had agreed with you that they would come out and be available every time that we have an inspection. But I've not had them back since I've been back, so that's what I'm working on.
Thank you.
You know, you mentioned that young man, they're probably not accustomed down there anyway to handle a job of that magnitude, number one. And number two, if you're apprehensive about that young man signing off, what's that going to do to you, Rob, when you look at that and this person that you don't have any confidence in, and you're going to sign off on something he approved?
Yeah, we had 2.5 weeks ago, we had a big meeting with Douglas and the county here, and I was participated with that. And I tried to explain to them that, and Bill Osborne is, his professional accreditation is a city planner, actually. He's a planner, not a building, he's not a professional architect or engineer. He's a planner. So he's kind of thrust in this administrative position. And so there's been not a lot going on in Douglas. And so they're bringing this young man up, and he's a very, very, very amicable guy. He's a nice person. He's pleasant. He wants to work and help. But I think he's just at his limit. This is a project that he cannot handle. So that's why we all agreed, and I've even brought in the discussions with my mechanical engineers, bringing them in to come down here to assist as well in these inspections as well. And by the way, I will have my engineers do reports on this project as well. So it's not just what I can see, but what they can see as well. So we're close with them. The county's been very good, and we had some personality issues in the past, and I think we're beyond that now. We just talked to the city just an hour ago, and I asked them to come out and clarify a couple areas, because part of the problem that they have is they think they're really clear, but they're not. And then Roger's saying, what do I do with this? And then I look at it and go, I don't know either. And so we're trying to get an answer to somebody say, okay, this is what needs to be fixed exactly. And we've had, and some of these inspections and some of these things that we're talking about are incredibly petty, to be honest with you. Like how deep is the manhole cover from the top of the soil? I mean, stuff like that, which to lay people would be inconsequential at all. I mean, it would just, you would roll your eyes if I told you some of these things that we're dealing with. But we know they have to be done. We're not saying that we won't get them done. We need clear, decisive information. And in the past, I was very critical of staff, city staff, that they were communicating only verbally and not by any written form. And so just recently was the first correspondence we really got from them in a written form, to be honest with you. So we've been going back and forth, and we had an issue a couple months back, and I had to get involved with the environmental department. And we were trying to resolve that issue, and they were saying, I told those guys for months, and then it got to the point where they were stopping inspections on the project and holding us up. And what happened was, so I got in the middle of that, and I talked to them, and they were like, well, we've been telling them for months. And I said, well, I'm the architect. You should have been CCing me those comments so that I can make sure that it's getting accomplished. So when they produced the information, they didn't have anything written for months, except one time. And so I was like, well, there's my point. You see, you can't stop construction just because, and nobody was even arguing that the work wouldn't be done. They said, but they literally shut us down for 2 weeks.
Well, you may have made a lot of inroads with the city here this morning. You know why? Mr. Lindeman was listening very, very careful to what you said.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lindeman is a big shot down there at the city. He's a member of the council.
Yeah,
So
my
I'm
partner
sure-
is too,
I'm sure
so,
that this has been very, very beneficial. Mr. Ramos, do you have anything else before we get into administration? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're still going to be available? All right. Anna, to sum it all up, do you have anything before I ask for a question?
No, as we said, we are operating with Plan B, and we can continue doing so. I am confident, and I wouldn't be saying that we are closer with Building R than, Building S. I wouldn't tell you we can probably move in 4 weeks to Building S. I will also have a very good communication with Rob and Caesar and Ellen and with Roger, and we know that we're not, I wouldn't say let's occupy that building just for the sake of occupying. So we will continue to work with the architect, but I will take the lead from you as far as moving in when all of these things are finalized.
Okay, Mr. Soto, you've been deeply involved. Do you have anything you want to add?
Not at all.
Not at all? All right.
Just kidding.
All right, now let's get back to the most important
He is going
part
to
of-
say something.
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Oh, I
Yes,
thought-
yes, no, yes.
I thought you prohibited it.
No, of course.
I'm just kidding. Back to the most important issue, Mr. Pineda, you want to come back up there after everything you heard briefly? How do you feel about everything now with all of the intervening conversation that took place here? Do you still feel the same way you did regarding especially what Mr. Lindeman had mentioned to you about, and then supported by Mrs. Salchow about having a schedule? How do you feel about that now?
I mean, if that's the plan, I'll go ahead and do it. I'm just, I was hoping for a better answer and see after hearing the experts that we're going to have that opportunity to have a new kitchen and do our thing. But I mean, we'll have a plan if that's a decision that you will make today. But we're going to be able to do the things that we're doing right now until we make a decision to move to the
Okay,
new building.
what is
so.
what is your plan? Just for clarification, we want to make sure we're perfectly clear when we walk out of here. What is your plan? You say we're going to work out a plan. What is the plan
Well,
gonna
the plan
be?
that is in place right now that it's barely day two is that we managing the operations at Joe Carlson for the whole district. So we're gonna have to make a plan logistically internally to see how it's gonna affect our employees in the future. But right now, that's our priority and the students. So we're gonna continue. We're gonna continue with the high expectations, and we're gonna see what we can do if that's the decision that you make today.
Okay, and we'll see what the discussion here with the board is in a minute when we get to the final decision. Okay, and then I would be remiss if I didn't ask the high school principal after all of this as well. I mean, you're over that whole activity up there. What do you think regarding the cafeteria itself? I mean, just the feeding of the students and nothing else.
So there is not a big impact on our students because they're going through their day-to-day routine. We haven't changed that at all. They're still being fed where we left off last year. I think just like Mr. Pineda said, the logistics comes more in the meal prep and the behind the scenes. So our students at this point are not affected. But I can see where Mr. Pineda's concern is if this goes longer than expected, it can become cumbersome for staff. It could lead to maybe more frustrations here in the near future. Where I can see as the leader of that department, that can be a concern for him. Because when you're working in such close proximity to your peers for a long period of time, it can become an issue. So I know that's a big concern for Mr. Pineda. So I understand Mr. Lindemann is thinking, hey, let's just do this for a quarter. But that's a long time. That is 9 weeks, 10 weeks at the most, just thinking about that. And you need to also consider transition time. We need to plan for that as well. So it's not something where like tomorrow we can just, start serving out of the cafeteria and start meal prepping there. It's going to take transition not just from serving students, but the meal prep process. They're going to need to be able to become familiar to their new kitchen, learn what they need to do, how things are going to work before we even start serving students in that cafeteria. So that's something that you guys need to also think and consider. So the sooner that we have the opportunity to do so, the better it's going to be for his staff. So as a team, we're in constant communication, and so the sooner, of course, once Rob and his team feel that the buildings are ready to be moved into, I want to honor and respect his staff by providing them that opportunity to do so. So in long term, yes, he can continue doing what he's going to do because that's what we do in this field. But you have to also consider quality. The quality may be affected if this is more long term. So that's my thoughts there.
Okay, good. And-
Mr. President,
Yeah,
I didn't say we're going to go for that quarter. What I said was I think we have to be planning, and if we can get in there earlier, so much the better. But I want to see a plan in case we have to have that extended out and nobody's ready. So I can understand all your concerns, but I think that it's better to plan and to be not caught, unplanned.
No, and definitely. So, there's other things, not just the cafeteria that, as a building principal, we need to consider. Especially safety being number one. those are things too, as a team that we talked about. It's great. Okay, buildings are done, they're ready to move in, but there's more logistics to that. So, yes, there's many factors to consider, but just the behind the scenes, what goes to serving kids. So right now, kids are not affected because they don't see all that, right? They're still being fed just like they did in the past, but long term, the longer this goes out, we may see the effects then.
Well, that's, and it's fine that you got into the other, but that's what I wanted to ask you about, the understanding of the students and the behavior after, and, you know, what their attitude might be about the menu and things like that. So, and by the way, I was up there yesterday, and those kids are amazing. That's an attribute of yours, because of the discipline's great. The operation was very smooth, and I think that we're very fortunate that we have Mr. Pineda there, because I saw that operation yesterday afternoon and again this morning at Joe Carlson, and things are going good. And so we can have that confidence that we know that they're going to be served. And Melissa, we know that you're not going to have any issue with kids up there regarding what the menu is and restlessness and those kinds of things. So thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, I'm going to, I think we covered, let everybody have their say, because this is a very important decision. Go ahead.
Yes, so I'll, at this point, I would just need guidance for you and from you as to when to occupy the building, whether it is, 2 weeks after to give us, allow us that transition time after we have all the inspections, the certificate of occupancy, and those punch list items that they have substantial completion to time to complete, and then you tell me, okay, Anna, you can occupy within a frame time of 2 weeks after Rob signs off, let's say.
Okay, that's
I
what
need.
we're going to talk about now. Mr. Lindeman, start with you, because you had you had some thoughts, and you thought about it. What would you like to see happen, and then maybe make it in form of a motion?
In light of all the discussion and all of the considerations, I truly think that we should table this, because I don't think we can get in there, on the 4th or wherever this motion. So I would make the motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. No discussion. Roll call on the table. Wait, there's not supposed to be any discussion on the table, but I just hope that we'll come back and let's take the vote, and then we'll come back and have a discussion. Go ahead, roll call.
Ms. Salcha?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes. Now let's talk about the effect of doing that with the administration. Where does that leave you?
It really leaves us in the same spot that we are in.
Okay.
We're going to continue working with our team. Once these unknowns are known, then I can come back with a clearer update for you, and we can have a meeting and say, okay, I have, a certificate of occupancy signed, Rob has done this, the company has done this, these are punch lists, and then we can have but we're pretty close. I'm confident that we're very close.
Okay, and I feel good about that too myself, because of Mr. Pineda and his ability to have that ongoing service. And as illustrated yesterday, of course, that was only the first day, but it looks like you're going to be able to do all right. You have a lot of, there's going to be an onus on you to, and I'm sure that the superintendent will check with you daily. So we'll leave it at that then, that we'll come back. We have a regular meeting on
On the 6th,
on
so if,
Tuesday.
I mean, on,
Eighth.
yes, the 8th, Tuesday the 8th, yes.
So it might be a little bit too soon, but
I may
I
have
know you're
more.
going to be interacting with them, so you may make a report regarding that. All right, Mr. Soto, any thing you want to contribute to the conversation? Do you feel okay with that?
Yeah.
Things just keep going the way they are? All right, okay, Rob, I'm going to give you another shot at it. I know you're going to work diligently to get this thing done, and we're going to do the best we can, working with the gentleman back there. And
We are, we're definitely, they're definitely feeling the pressure. As I jokingly say, if they were a piece of charcoal, they would be a white diamond right now under the pressure. that we're exerting on them. So they are really, you know, one of the things that you need to understand is that we are trying to, if you beat up somebody to the point where they're unconscious, they don't do anything for you. And we're trying to work as a team, and I think we are, and we're working well together. We are trying to resolve problems together. And so they've been taking a lot of my backlash very well, and they accept responsibility when I'm here, when I'm there, and that's why I was a little late, because we were chewing at that point. So and this team has had a lot of extraordinary things happen to them. You know, there's been a lot of personal things that have happened to this team along the way. We've had a lot of staff turnover. I think we've got a great team. I think we're almost at the finishing line. Just need a little bit more patience, and we're going to get there. So, and believe me, I will not let up.
Okay.
They call me in my office the Rottweiler, and there's a reason why they use that term.
Okay.
And I will also say that, and I agree with Rob, once Roger came on board, we had a lot more things moving, a lot more communication, not that there wasn't one before, but the change in leadership is always a setback in many organizations. But I am confident that we are very close to, you know, moving in, and I'll be bringing that to you for a vote very soon.
Okay, so the conversation was needed. It was good that we had some exposition about what was going on, and it was helpful. We appreciate everybody being here this morning, especially members of the board. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? By Ms. Salchow. All those in favor?
Aye.